here were some of the projections in 2022. Of course, they were 10-2. Our projection had them at 11-1. I predicted them to go 12-0. I picked this team to win the national championship in the preseason. Obviously, the schedule got to them with some very tough road games, losing to LSU and Tennessee, both on the road, and they didn't even make it to the playoff. The FBI projection was at 11.3 and 1.5. That would include the SEC championship game potentially. And then the over-under was at 10.5. I didn't think there was any way this team would go 10-2. I thought they were 11-1 or 12-0, and they did find a way to lose 2 games, which it turned out that Tennessee wound up being better than expected. LSU wound up being good. You know, they had some other games in there as well. Texas was a tough game. But now let's look ahead at the projections for 23. This is the schedule, and let's show you the scale that we'll be using. The games in the white, those are your 50-50 games where I think the spread will be less than a touchdown, 3, 4, 5 points or less, somewhere in that range. The red and the green, those are games where I think the spreads will be 20 or more. And then you have your orange and blue. Those are the games where I think the spreads will be in the double digits, 10-17, maybe up to 20 points, kind of in that range. And then the yellow and the purple, those are games where I think the spread will be about a touchdown, 6, 7, 8 points. And we'll go through and then average everything out. So let's start with the green, the games that are, I think, easy wins. They're pretty much guaranteed wins. And I think these non-conference games are just that. Middle Tennessee, South Florida, and Chattanooga. South Florida is on the road, but I mean, they have no business hanging around with Alabama. All 3 of these games, I think the spreads will be over 20. You know, Chattanooga, that one could be in the 30s. So those are easy wins. No real struggle at all, I think, in those 3 games. Then you go to the games in the blue. You got a lot of these games: Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Kentucky. I think they'll be favored by double digits in all 4 of these games. Ole Miss playing at home, you know, that one will be closer to 10 probably. Really, all of these are going to be closer to 10 than they are 20. These are quality teams in the SEC, but again, Alabama just with a big advantage in talent, and Vegas always likes the Crimson Tide, so I do expect them to be double-digit favorites against Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Kentucky. But you never know, one of these teams could be a surprise team. You know, Kentucky could wind up being a top 10, top 15 team, and that would obviously change that. But looking at what is expected from these teams right now, I think these games probably, again, will be games where Alabama is favored by 10 or more points. So we count those as wins. The blue and the green games, we count those as wins, and then we'll average everything else out. So how about games in the purple? Really, that's the rest of the schedule here. I think Alabama is going to be favored by about a touchdown in the rest of their games. Texas A&M on the road. Because Tennessee and LSU are at home, I do expect Alabama to be favored in both of those games by 6 or 7 points. Auburn on the road, the Iron Bowl is always tough. And you never know what Auburn's going to look like with Hugh Freeze. That's a tough one right now to try to predict where the spread would be. It could be one where it's in double digits for sure. But if Auburn makes some improvements playing in Jordan-Hare, the Iron Bowl, I think you could probably put that one around 8 or 9 points potentially. And then there's Texas at the beginning of the year. Texas played them tough last year, but it is at home this year. So I do think Alabama will be favored in every single game that they play. But you've got, I think, 5 games here that are going to be tough. These are games that Alabama could potentially lose. And when you average them out, so we use 65% for these games, out of those 5 games, that means that they would lose a couple of them. They would go 3-2 in those 5 games, and that's going to give you a projection of 10-2. So a 10-2 projected record for Alabama. Again, with these games, yes, they'll be favored, but when you have that many tough games, 5 tough games right there, the odds would tell you that they're going to lose 1 or 2 of those games. And with a new quarterback, you know, a lot of question marks around this team, it would not shock me at all to see them lose 2 games again this season. It wouldn't surprise me, though, if they went 12-0 either, just because they have Nick Saban as their head coach. But it's a pretty tough schedule, and I think you could potentially see them lose a couple of games. Again, the projection for them, 10-2 in 2023.